If you grew up watching the animated movie, The Road to El Dorado, you may remember this scene. Here we see a very intense and seemingly impossible sport. You may have even had the same response as the main characters. This game is an actual sport called Ulama, and some anthropologists refer to it as the first team sport, let alone one of the oldest sports recorded. There are multiple forms of Ulama, so this video will focus on Ulama de Cadera, or hip Ulama. Ulama is an ancient sport originating from Mesoamerica around 3,500 years ago. Archaeologists have found over 1,500 Ulama courts spanning from Arizona in the north to Honduras in the south. This widespread, dangerous game held spiritual and political significance as it was a form of worship and political affairs. According to scholars, the game was used to reenact cosmic battles between the gods, fertility rituals, warfare ceremonies, and even human sacrifice. Some kings even used the game as a form of duel to settle disputes. Ulama traditionally was played on a court called a taste that had a field lined by walls. There is evidence that suggests that each court was different, therefore the playing field was not uniform like we see in modern sports. The flanking walls were either sloped or vertical and were mounted with a stone hoop on either side. Once again, the courts were not uniform across Mesoamerica, so not every court had the hoops present. At each end of the court, there were end zones that were used for scoring. The rules of Ulama are very complex, so in the light of simplicity, a team was able to score by 1. Having the ball reach the other team's end zone, 2. If the ball was knocked out of bounds, 3. When markers were hit, or 4. When the ball was passed through one of the vertical hoops. If a ball was managed to pass through a hoop, it was an automatic win for the team. Otherwise, the first team to score 8 points wins. However, this was a lot easier said than done. One of the more interesting aspects of the game was that the scoring is not linear. Sequential scoring or linear scoring with time constraint is a trait characterized by Western ideology. The scoring in Ulama, however, aligns with traditional Mesoamerican ideology. Scorekeeping was done so in an oscillatory pattern to reflect the duality between the contrary and complementary forces of the universe, such as light and darkness. The ball is not able to touch your hands, so therefore forearms, hips, legs, torsos, and feet were used to handle the ball. And like volleyball, the ball was supposed to stay up in the air for as long as possible. The end of a play was called when the ball hit the ground or if the ball stops on one of the end zones, depending on the specific game being played and the rules used. Because the game involved a rubber ball that weighs over 9 pounds, leather padding and gloves are included in the uniforms as protection, specifically on the hips. For ceremonial purposes, the uniforms involve elaborate face and body paintings, loincloths, and headdresses. Ulama is a team sport and is usually played with 5 to 8 players on each team. Even though this ancient sport may seem obsolete, one of the most notorious features was the use of the rubber ball. The ball used in the game is solid rubber, an object that fascinated the Spanish conquistadors. Cortés brought one of the balls to the royal court, who were captivated by its ability to bounce. This then paved the way for the use of rubber balls in other European sports, such as tennis. Ulama has been played for centuries until it became at great risk of extinction after the Spanish conquest of Latin America. The Spanish conquistadors viewed the game as barbaric and banned it in 1585. Since then, the game has been seemingly obsolete, but with growing cultural movements, the sport of Ulama is experiencing a revival in Latin America, and even more specifically, Mexico. While today's version of Ulama is not as dangerous and does not involve human sacrifices, people are restoring the traditional Mesoamerican flair that is unique to the sport. The players take part in traditional protection and dress in an attempt to remain true to their culture. In Mexico City, a community center was designed and built for the sole purpose of providing a facility for pre-Hispanic traditions and games. Many athletes are reclaiming the game as a recreational sport for people to use to reconnect with their cultures. Athletes have stated that they do not only want to teach others the sport, but also teach people about their history and traditions, something that was buried by centuries of colonization. While the majority of players today are around 30 to 40 years old, they are beginning to teach their children the sport in an effort to spread awareness of Ulama and its cultural implications. Ulama seems to be a sport that was traditionally played by men, at least to modern scholars. However, there is evidence being found that women participated in the sport as well. Ancient figurines and relics have been found depicting women playing the dangerous sport. It has been found that women in Mesoamerica held prominent roles in religion, the public economy, and in society, which can be reflected by their participation in Ulama. It was not until the Spaniards arrived that the gender roles changed. The idea of being a woman was influenced by Spain, resulting in a marginalized view of women. Today, women are joining in the revival of the game, pushing back on the westernized gender roles implemented in sports. Studying and understanding native and ancient sports like Ulama not only help us understand the history of athletics, but can help us further understand ancient societies and cultures. Through Ulama, we are able to understand some religious, social, and political aspects of ancient Mesoamerican culture, which in turn can help us understand modern Latin American cultures and our overall development as humans.